Be me, final year engineering student. Life is basically a mix of caffeine, differential equations, and the quiet hum of a 3D printer in the lab. I'm not a genius, but I'm a hard worker. My whole world is logic. Things either work or they don't. A bridge either stands or it collapses. Code either compiles or it fails. There's a right answer and a wrong answer, and you find the right one by doing the work. GPA is solid. Got a promising internship lined up that's supposed to turn into a full-time offer after graduation. The finish line is in sight. Just one last hurdle, one final, stupid, university-mandated hurdle. I needed one more humanities credit to graduate. The course catalog was a wasteland of classes that were either full or conflicted with my essential engineering labs. My options were slim. Ended up with the only thing that fit my schedule. Introduction to Sociology, Power and Society. Sounds boring, but whatever. I can handle boring. Just need to show up, take notes, pass the exam, and get out. The professor is a Dr. Margaret. Never heard of her. First day of class, I walk in and immediately feel out of place. The room is full of arts and humanities students. You know the type. I find a seat in the back with a couple of other lost-looking engineering dudes. We give each other the silent, "we're in this together" nod. Dr. Margaret walks in. She's maybe in her 50s, has that look of someone who is perpetually disappointed with the world. She doesn't say hello or introduce the course material. Instead, she starts with a monologue. It's all about oppressive structures, invisible forces, and the inherent biases baked into every single aspect of modern life. Okay, a bit dramatic, but it's her class. Then she starts zeroing in. She talks about how science and technology aren't objective fields of discovery. According to her, they are tools, primarily developed by one group, to maintain control over others. I see the other engineering guys shifting in their seats. This isn't going to be a sit in the back and stay quiet kind of class. Over the next few weeks, a clear pattern emerges. Anytime a female student speaks, her answer is insightful, brave, or an important lived experience. Even if the answer is just pure feeling with zero facts to back it up. Anytime a male student speaks, his answer is met with suspicion. His points are overly simplistic, missing the nuance, or a product of his unexamined privilege. She had this signature move where she'd listen to a guy's point, tilt her head, and say, "And why do you feel the need to frame it that way?" It was a trap. There was no right answer. It wasn't a discussion. It was a re-education camp. I learned very quickly to just keep my mouth shut. I did the readings, wrote down what she wanted to hear in my notes, and just tried to become invisible. The midterm was an essay. The prompt was something about how modern workplaces perpetuate historical inequalities. I just regurgitated her lecture notes back to her, used all her favorite buzzwords, got a decent grade, felt dirty, but it was the only way to play the game. The main project for the course was a group presentation, worth a huge chunk of our final grade. I get assigned to a group with 3 other people, 2 art students who seem nice enough but completely checked out, and Julia. Julia was actually smart. She was quiet, but when she did speak in class, she asked good questions. Our assigned topic was technology's role in reinforcing social hierarchies. Perfect. Right up my alley, but also a minefield in this particular class. The first group meeting is a bust. The 2 other students have other commitments. It's just me and Julia. We decide to divide the work. She'll handle the historical and social theory side of things. I'll handle the technical side, how algorithms actually work, how data is collected and used, stuff like that. It seemed like a fair division of labor. I actually kinda got into it. I spent hours in the library looking up real-world examples. I made detailed slides with diagrams, flowcharts, and cited data from peer-reviewed journals. I wanted to show how certain biases can be coded into systems, but I wanted to explain it from a technical, factual standpoint. Not this vague, it's all a conspiracy stuff we heard in class. I explained how facial recognition software struggles with darker skin tones because the training data was flawed. I showed how certain predictive policing algorithms could create feedback loops in low-income neighborhoods. It was factual, it was demonstrable, it was engineering. Our group meets a few days before the presentation to practice. The other 2 members show up with a few slides they clearly threw together that morning. Their part is basically just quotes from articles Dr. Margaret told us to read. Julia's part is solid, well-researched, well-argued. Then I present my section. I walk them through it, explaining the technical concepts as simply as I can. When I'm done, Julia is actually impressed. She tells me she never understood how that stuff actually worked, and that my explanation made it clear. The other two just nod along, looking at their phones. I felt pretty good. My part was solid. The project was going to be fine. Presentation day arrives. We're the last group to go. I'm sitting there listening to other presentations. It's the same thing over and over. Lots of passion, lots of feelings, not a lot of facts. Dr. Margaret is eating it up, nodding, smiling, writing positive comments. Then it's our turn. We get up to the front of the class. The first two members of our group stumble through their slides. It's awkward, but they get through it. Then Julia presents her section. She's great, clear, confident, makes her points well. Then it's my turn. I pull up my slides. The first one is a simplified diagram of a machine learning model. I start explaining the process. I'm calm. I'm just stating facts. I can see Dr. Margaret's expression slowly changing. Her smile is gone. She's leaning forward, her arms crossed, with a look of intense scrutiny on her face. I ignore it and keep going. I get to my examples. I explain the technical reasons for the biases, how it's often a case of bad data or lazy programming, not some grand malicious design. I finish my last slide and conclude my part of the presentation. I thought it went well. I was clear. I was factual. I was objective. Our group moderator asks if there are any questions from the class. A few seconds of silence. Then Julia turns to me. She looks genuinely curious. She says my name and asks if I could explain the feedback loop concept again, specifically how a system can end up reinforcing the very bias it was supposed to ignore. It was a great question. It showed she was paying attention and trying to understand a complex topic. I smile a little, glad that my part of the presentation had an impact. I turn to her to answer. I open my mouth to speak. The simplest way to think about it is like this. That's as far as I got. That's enough, Dash. Dr. Margaret's voice cut through the room like ice. Everyone freezes. I turn to look at her. She is staring at me, and she is not happy. She has this smug, triumphant look on her face, like she just caught me red-handed. I think we've all seen enough, she says to the class, but her eyes are locked on me. The room is dead silent. You could hear a pin drop. Julia is a perfectly capable student who asked a thoughtful question to the group, she continues, her voice dripping with condescension. She did not, however, ask for you to patronize her with a simplistic explanation. Your immediate impulse to jump in and over-explain a concept to your female colleague is a textbook example of toxic masculinity. I am just standing there, completely stunned. I can't even process what's happening. I look at Julia. Her face is bright red. She looks horrified. She starts to say something like, "No, I actually wanted to know." But Dr. Margaret cuts her off with a sharp wave of her hand. "There's no need to defend him, Julia. It's a conditioned response. He probably doesn't even realize he's doing it." She turns her glare back to me. This performance was a perfect demonstration of the very power structures we've been discussing all semester. An attempt to assert dominance and intellectual superiority in a space that is supposed to be collaborative. I finally find my voice. It comes out as a weak croak. I was just answering her question. "No," she snaps, "you were mansplaining, and for that, your group will receive a failing grade for this project. And that, Mr. Dash, will be your final grade for this course." The words hang in the air. Fail? A failing grade? My mind is racing. A fail on my transcript, my GPA, the job offer. It all flashes before my eyes. This can't be real. This is a nightmare. The bell rings, signaling the end of class. It's the loudest sound I've ever heard. Students are grabbing their bags, avoiding eye contact with me, desperate to get out of the room. I'm still standing at the front, frozen. Dr. Margaret is calmly packing her briefcase, acting like she didn't just detonate a bomb in the middle of my life. Julia rushes up to me as people are filing out. She's almost in tears. She keeps apologizing, saying she didn't mean for this to happen, that she really just wanted to understand my point. I tell her it's not her fault. It's not. She did nothing wrong. She looks devastated and hurries out of the room. I wait until everyone is gone. It's just me and Dr. Margaret. I walk up to her desk. My heart is pounding. I'm trying to stay calm and rational. Dr. Margaret, I think there has been a serious misunderstanding. She doesn't even look up from her briefcase. There is no misunderstanding. I was perfectly clear. I try again. I was just trying to be helpful. The question was directed at me, and I was providing an answer based on my expertise in the subject. That's not mansplaining. She finally looks at me. Her eyes are cold. Your expertise is precisely the problem. You came into my classroom with the assumption that your technical knowledge makes you superior to the sociological perspectives we are studying. You have shown a fundamental disrespect for this discipline all semester by remaining silent, and then chose this moment to perform your authority. The lesson here is not about algorithms dash, it's about humility, a lesson you have clearly failed to learn. I can't believe what I'm hearing. She's twisting everything. My silence was me trying to survive her class, not disrespected. My answer was me contributing, not performing authority. This is going to ruin my GPA, I say, my voice shaking a little. It could affect my job offer. She snaps her briefcase shut. Perhaps you should have considered that before you decided to publicly undermine a female peer. The real world has consequences. My decision is final. She walks past me and out of the classroom without another word. I just stand there in the empty room. The reality of the situation crashes down on me. I'm screwed. I spent the rest of the day in a fog. I couldn't focus on anything. The injustice of it all was eating me alive. I didn't do anything wrong. I was punished for being competent, for answering a question. The next morning, I made an appointment to see the dean of the humanities department. I had to appeal this. This was insane. I get to his office. The dean is one of those guys who has a carefully cultivated, friendly academic vibe. He offers me a seat, listens patiently while I explain the entire situation. I lay it all out. The professor's clear bias throughout the semester, the details of the presentation, Julia's question, the mansplaining accusation, and the instant fail. I tried to be as objective as possible. When I'm finished, he leans back in his chair and steeples his fingers. He has a look of deep, practiced concern on his face. I understand your frustration, I really do, he begins. The classic bureaucratic non-apology. However, Dr. Margaret is a tenured professor with a long and distinguished career. She has complete academic freedom in her classroom. I push back. Academic freedom doesn't give her the right to fail a student based on a personal grudge or a political ideology. Mansplaining is a recognized concept in modern sociology, he says smoothly. Dr. Margaret was making a pedagogical judgment based on her expertise. It's her word against yours, and frankly, she is the expert here. I feel my anger rising. Can you at least talk to Julia? She was there. She'll tell you she genuinely wanted an answer. The dean shakes his head slowly. Putting a student in a position to testify against her professor is not something we do. It would create a very uncomfortable and contentious environment. We have to consider the potential for backlash. Backlash. That's what this was about. They were afraid of her, afraid of the optics. A male engineering student accusing a female sociology professor of bias? I already knew how that story would be spun on the campus blogs. The dean continues. My official recommendation is for you to accept the grade and retake the course in the summer. It's an unfortunate situation, but escalating it will only create a much larger problem for you and for the university. A larger problem for the university. There it was. This wasn't about right and wrong. It was about damage control. I was the damage. I stood up, my fists clenched at my sides. So that's it? I just have to accept this? This is completely unfair. Life is often unfair, the dean says, giving me a sad little smile that doesn't reach his eyes. Sometimes the wisest course of action is to choose your battles. I walked out of his office without saying another word. He was right. I had lost the battle. The system was rigged. I walked back to my apartment, feeling completely and utterly defeated. Everything I had worked for over the last 4 years was on the line because of one woman's crusade. I sat on my bed, staring at the wall. The anger had faded, replaced by a hollow feeling of helplessness. There was nothing I could do. I had followed the rules. I had tried the official channels. I had been polite and rational, and in the end, none of it mattered. My phone was on my desk. I picked it up and scrolled through my contacts. My parents would just worry. My friends wouldn't know what to do. Then my finger stopped on one name, Grandpa. I hesitated. My grandfather is an old-school guy, an engineer like me. He built a successful manufacturing company from the ground up. He's a man of few words. He believes in hard work, personal responsibility, and common sense. He has no time for nonsense. I hadn't wanted to bother him with my school problems, but I was out of options. I took a deep breath and hit the call button. The phone rings a few times before he picks up. His voice is exactly as I remember. A little gravelly, no nonsense. Hello? Hey, Grandpa, it's Dash. There's a slight pause. He's probably surprised I'm calling on a weekday afternoon. Everything all right, son? And right there, my carefully constructed wall of calm just crumbles. I try to keep my voice steady, but it's no use. I just start talking. The words pour out of me. I explain the whole semester. Dr. Margaret's attitude, the impossible-to-win discussions, my strategy of just staying quiet to get through it. I tell him about the group project, how I did the research, how I focused only on the facts and the technical data. I describe the presentation, Julia's question, and how I tried to answer it. Then I get to the accusation. The words toxic masculinity and mansplaining. I can almost hear him frowning on the other end of the line. I tell him she failed me on the spot for the whole course. NF. I recount my meeting with the dean, how he basically told me to just roll over and accept it to avoid making waves for the university. When I'm finally done, there's just silence on the line. For a good 10-15 seconds, I hear nothing. I start to worry that I overwhelmed him, that I just sound like a complaining kid. Finally, he speaks. His voice is different. It's quiet, but it's hard, like steel. Let me get this straight, he says slowly. You were part of a group. Yes. You presented your section of the work, which was based on your area of study. Yes, engineering. A fellow student asked you a direct question about your section. Yes, Julia asked me to clarify a concept I had just presented. And when you began to answer her direct question, this professor interrupted you. Immediately. And she accused you of, what was that ridiculous word again? Mansplaining. I can hear him let out a short, sharp sigh. It's not a sigh of sadness, it's a sigh of contempt. And on that basis alone, she failed you for the entire course. That's right, she said it was a performative act of intellectual superiority. Another moment of silence. I can picture him perfectly, sitting in his study, looking out the window, his jaw set. And the dean, he continues, his voice even colder now. The administrator. His solution was for you to accept a failing grade you didn't earn, to protect the institution from backlash. He said I should choose my battles. He's quiet for a long time. I'm about to say something, to fill the silence, but I stop myself. I know that look. I know that silence. He's not sad. He's not disappointed in me. He's processing. He's analyzing the problem. He's formulating a solution. When he finally speaks again, his tone is back to his normal, calm self. But with an edge. Dash, he says, you did nothing wrong. You presented facts. You answered a question. You acted with integrity. The system failed you. Not the other way around. Hearing him say that, it was like a massive weight was lifted off my chest. It was the first time someone hadn't treated me like I was the problem. He continues. Don't do anything else. Don't send any more emails. Don't talk to anyone else at that school. Just go to your other classes. Do your work. Let me handle this. I'm a little confused. What are you going to do? I'm going to make a phone call. To the dean? I hear a dry chuckle on the other end of the line. No, son. You never talk to the middle manager when the whole factory is rotten. You talk to the owner. And with that, he says, I'll call you back when it's done. He hangs up. I sit there, holding my phone, feeling a strange mixture of relief and anxiety. What did he mean by that? The owner? I had no idea what he was planning, but for the first time in 48 hours, I felt a sliver of hope. The next day was strange. I went to my engineering classes. I worked in the lab. But the whole time, the F was hanging over my head. I kept checking my email, my phone. Nothing. The day after that was the same. Silence. The doubt started to creep back in. Maybe I had put him in an impossible position. He's just one guy. What could he really do against a whole university bureaucracy? Maybe his phone call was just him venting to some old friend on the alumni association. Maybe the dean was right. Maybe I just had to accept it. I was in the middle of a thermodynamics lecture when my phone vibrated in my pocket. I ignored it. Then it vibrated again. And again. A text message this time. I glanced down. It was from the dean's office. Mr. Dash, the dean requests you come to his office at your earliest possible convenience. It is a matter of utmost urgency. My heart started pounding. Utmost urgency? I excused myself from the lecture, my mind racing. Was I in more trouble? Was Dr. Margaret filing some kind of formal harassment complaint against me for appealing? I walked over to the humanities building, my stomach in knots. I get to the dean's office. His assistant sees me and immediately waves me in, like she's been waiting by the door for me. The moment I walk in, I know something has fundamentally changed. The dean is standing behind his desk. He's not sitting comfortably in his chair. He's standing. He looks pale. There are beads of sweat on his forehead. The friendly, condescending academic is gone. In his place is a cornered, terrified bureaucrat. "Dash, thank you for coming in so quickly. Please sit down," he says, his voice a little shaky. I remain standing. He gestures awkwardly to the chair. "Please." I sit. He doesn't. He starts pacing behind his desk. "Look," he begins, wringing his hands. "It appears there has been a rather significant misunderstanding regarding your grade in Dr. Margaret's sociology course." I just stare at him, saying nothing. After a more thorough review of the situation, he continues, avoiding my eyes, "We've come to realize that the grading assessment for your final project was, well, it was not conducted in accordance with the university's standards of fairness and objectivity." My eyebrows go up. "Really, what changed?" He flinches at my direct tone. "It was a clerical error," he says quickly. "A simple but profound clerical error. Dr. Margaret, she has a very unique pedagogical style. Sometimes her methods can be misinterpreted. He's practically babbling. The point is, we've reviewed your contribution to the project, your slides, your research. It was excellent work, truly impressive. The university has decided to override Dr. Margaret's assessment." He stops pacing and looks at me, trying to force a smile. "Your final grade for the course has been changed to an A." "Congratulations." I just sit there, an A, just like that. The relief I expected to feel isn't there. Instead, it's being replaced by a cold, clarifying anger. 2 days ago, this man told me life was unfair and I should just deal with it. Now he's congratulating me. I know this wasn't his decision. He was ordered to do this. "What about Dr. Margaret?" I ask. The dean's face tightens. "Dr. Margaret will be taking part in some professional development workshops. We are all lifelong learners after all." It's a pathetic see-through lie. He clears his throat. "On another note," he says, trying to sound casual, Have you by any chance spoken with your grandfather lately?" And there it is. The reason for all of this. I look him straight in the eye. "Why do you ask?" He starts sweating again. No reason at all. He is a very distinguished alumnus, a pillar of the community. The university holds him in the absolute highest regard. We were just hoping, well, President Miller was hoping, that perhaps your grandfather might be open to a follow-up conversation to ensure this whole misunderstanding has been fully resolved to his satisfaction. President Miller, the university president. My grandpa didn't call a middle manager. He called the owner. A slow smile spreads across my face. I can't help it. The dean sees my smile and seems to take it as a good sign. "Excellent," he says, his relief palpable. "I will let the president know. Thank you again for your understanding in this matter, Dash." I stand up. "I didn't misunderstand anything," I say, my voice steady. "I understood the situation perfectly then, and I understand it perfectly now." I turn and walk out of his office, leaving him standing there in his own sweat. I walk out of the building and into the sunshine. It's over. I won. But it wasn't me who won. It was my grandpa. I pull out my phone and check my student portal. I scroll down to the sociology course. The big red F is gone. In its place is a beautiful green A. I took a screenshot of it. A few days pass. The campus is buzzing with rumors. The story going around is that Dr. Margaret had a personal emergency and had to take an indefinite leave of absence. Her class was taken over by a grad student who seemed terrified, but was at least fair. I heard from a friend in the humanities department that the real story was much juicier. Apparently, there was a massive, multi-million-dollar donation for the new engineering building that was suddenly and unexpectedly pulled. The donation was from an anonymous alumnus who cited a loss of faith in the university's academic standards. The administration went into full-blown panic mode. Dr. Margaret was called into an emergency meeting with the president and the entire board. No one knows what was said in that room, but she came out looking like she'd seen a ghost. Her tenure saved her from being fired outright. But she was effectively neutralized. She was stripped of her teaching duties for all mandatory undergraduate courses. She was moved to a tiny windowless office in the basement of the oldest building on campus. Her sabbatical was a forced exile. She was a non-person. It was the academic equivalent of being sent to the salt mines. The comeuppance was so total, so beautifully complete, it was almost poetic. That weekend, I drove out to see my grandpa. I found him in his workshop, tinkering with an old engine. I handed him a bottle of the good whiskey he likes. He looked at it, then at me, and a small smile touched his lips. "I take it things have been resolved," he said, wiping his hands on a rag. "You could say that," I replied. "I got an A." He just nodded, like it was the most obvious outcome in the world. We went inside, and he poured us both a small drink. We sat there for a minute in comfortable silence. "Okay," I finally said. "You have to tell me. What did you say in that phone call?" He took a sip of his drink and looked out the window. "Not much," he said. "I didn't yell. I didn't make threats. That's not how you handle these people." He turned to look at me. "I called the president of the university. I introduced myself. I told him my grandson was an engineering student there. I told him my father had been an engineering student there before me. I explained very calmly the facts of what had happened. No emotion, just the chain of events. A student was asked a question in his area of expertise. He answered it. He was failed for it. The administration then supported the decision in order to avoid a fuss. I told him that this incident suggested that the university my family had supported for 3 generations no longer valued merit or objective truth, that it had been hollowed out by ideology. Then I informed him that the 7-figure donation my family foundation had pledged for the new engineering wing was being withdrawn, effective immediately, and that I would be making my reasons for doing so known to my fellow alumni. He took another sip. Then I wished him a good day, and I hung up. I just stared at him, speechless. It was so simple, so direct, so utterly devastating. He had bypassed their entire system of committees and appeals and grievances. He had ignored their rules. He had identified their single biggest weakness, their dependency on money and reputation, and he had pressed on it with overwhelming force. He looked at me, his eyes serious. "Listen to me, Dash. You're going to run into people like that professor your whole life. People who don't build anything, don't create anything, don't solve any real problems. All they do is talk. They create complicated rules and ideologies to justify their own existence and to tear down the people who actually do the work. You can't reason with them. You can't win by playing their game. They will twist your words, they will change the rules, and they will always make you the bad guy." He leaned forward a little. "Your strength is not in arguing with them. Your strength is in what you can do, in what you can build. Never let people who create nothing but words tell you how the world works. And," he said, finishing his drink, "always know when it's time to stop playing by their rules and start making your own." I left his house that day feeling like I had learned more in that one conversation than in all 4 years of university. I graduated with honors. I got the job. And every time I face a problem now, I think about that lesson. I don't waste time arguing inside a broken system. I find the leverage point. I find the language they understand, and I speak it fluently.